Hello, my name is Richard Miller. You're at Never Not Here, and you're in Australia today. Hey, big news. I've been here 3 weeks, and you're in Australia every day if you show up on this channel. And you're totally welcome in Australia, and I can say that even though I'm not an Australian, because I just feel the welcome I have. And I just feel, in a way, a welcoming even from the forests and the lands and the... I haven't gone to the sea too much, but it was a shocking experience. The one time I jumped in the sea, I kind of fell out of my skin. And so then just call it, what is this essence that's this envelope, you know? It's so easy to call it a vibration, right? A lot of people like that word, a frequency, the pulse of life. And I seem to be deeply affected by it. I hope it's not too annoying that I keep saying this, or I'll discover a new way to say it. And I realize how much I'm just into my projects, which are sort of automatic. And even if I'm setting up or getting ready or preparing something that I know so well to do, in a way my focus is on the result. My focus is on even a couple seconds, a minute later, when I'll turn on the camera and when I'll start to speak. You know, now it really isn't on any result, because now, I don't know, words are just kind of coming out. And maybe they're kind of disjointed even, who knows? And that's okay too. So I really want to share what's here and go on a discovery that everyone can go on. And I don't expect anyone to follow me moment by moment, because I'm really, really getting into it. And so then opportunities come up. People come to me and other people suggest someone that would be interesting to talk with, someone that you would like to hear. They're all our ideas, and then the connection gets made, and here we are. And so let us begin. So help me welcome Dianne Horton. Hello, Diane.
Hello, Richard. Interesting to be here in this position, in this place today. As you said earlier, I've been invited to speak and to share my experience, and it's been an experience for probably 8, maybe 10 years worth of exploring, and it has started with meeting Paul Lowe, who's also on one of your videos, and probably around about the time when you have one of those tragic moments in your life, big upheaval, or something that really kickstarts you into actually having a look at yourself. And so that probably happened about 8 or 9 years ago, and with the breakdown of my marriage and my family, and how I saw that. You know, you're conditioned from a young child what it's going to look like, and you might have a Cinderella story that goes with it, and then when it all fell apart, Paul Lowe lived down the road, and I'd go and visit him, and he's just amazing, one sentence, and it sort of brought you back to yourself and having a look at what's actually going on in here, and the movement and the change that can happen when you start exploring who's actually inside this body. And a lot of it I didn't actually like. A lot of it was very moving, very scary, very fearful place to look when you actually stop and decide that you want to discover who you really are, and not just keep blindfoldly walking through life being a robot on automatic, acting from your past, your conditioning, and who you think you are.
Right. Well, just when I look at you, you know, and I get this feeling of confidence and rock solid practicality and someone that really knows how to run her affairs. I mean, maybe that's a lot of my imagination, but I just want to acknowledge you and thank you, because when you see deeply into that, then maybe that same rock solidness is not the same place you're at now. And so then I want to acknowledge that you're willing to share your position, even though it is kind of fresh and new, and so then some might say that that's a courageous thing you're doing, just to share something that, really, in many cases, we're all unsure of life, we are really, but we make it out like we pretend we are sure of life. And so then when that pretense starts to run thin or wear out, then we think, oh, we should go back to the drawing board and figure it out. And then when we do, we can appear again. And then maybe the figuring out never happens again. I don't even know. But thanks so much for sharing these tender moments.
Yes, yeah. It's sort of from this place that I'm in today, it's like revisiting a storybook and having a look at a storybook, because it feels like something else. And it's like going a long way back in the past to somebody else's life, and to try and remember actually who I was back then compared to who I am today. It's actually like two different people. It's actually that different that I could be talking about my sister or a friend, and it's just hard to actually conceive of how I used to operate. And you would probably say I was quite grounded back then as well, but now there's part of me that I don't actually know if I'm grounded. A lot of the time I feel like I'm not here, that I'm in what I call fairyland, or what my son calls fairyland, which is this other place that exists strongly inside myself, that just has this sense of huge expansion, wonderment, bliss in life, because there doesn't feel like there's anything that is in my way. There's no walls, there's no hills, there's no barriers, there's no glass walls, there's absolutely nothing in this place now. Whereas before, if I was to look back, gosh, it was like a roller coaster ride, which, when you see most people's lives, they are roller coaster rides, and going round and round and in the rat race, just trying to do the best that they can, not realizing how they're actually operating, quite asleep to the possibility that they're actually creating that roller coaster ride by who they're being in that moment, how they're operating unconsciously. And so they just do something, and then they wonder, well, why is my life like this? Why do I keep repeating this? Why do I keep having this occur in my life? Why isn't my life different? And it's full of complaint and why, and what can I do that's different? And they look outside to try and fix it, to make it better inside. Because most people, like myself back then, it's not so much fun having a look in here to see actually who's operating, who's running the show, basically. So when you actually stop and do that, you run from yourself.
Mm-hmm. I want to put a couple of distinctions on there and see if they fit. I'll test them out on you. Of course, we say a roller coaster, and then somehow, maybe we think a roller coaster is fun, right? Because, oh boy, there's always never a dull moment. But in a way, what's happening is, because you were explaining a vast place, and you called it fairyland, and you said that basically what I was getting is everything's electric, and everything is like just total live, right? And then, in order not to operate, that seems like a hard place to operate from so many people, so they have to deaden it down. somehow kind of peel off of it, whew, this is like, I don't even know where I am, and then the roller coaster, what the roller coaster could be is that you keep bumping into things because you're tuned down, right? And you're really saying, I bumped right into that thing again. And so then now I'm heading down, and now I bumped into something else and I'm veering off, and then you could call it a roller coaster, but in a way it's kind of like a blind walk through a maze, right? And you're hitting every wall square on, right?
Well, yes, but people love that. People love going on the roller coaster. They like the downs because then they know they're going to get an up. And then when they're up and they're feeling really good, they go, oh, maybe this isn't going to last. And so then they head down again, and they quite enjoy the drama.
Uh-huh.
They like the frustration and the struggle and the stress and all those things without realizing that that's a part of them that actually likes that. It's like an addiction to life being all these different facets and all these different ways of living, and it makes it more exciting, but it also is quite traumatizing for a lot of people. And if they actually stopped and looked, every aspect of that part on that roller coaster, there's a place where they actually enjoy it. They either enjoy it because it's fun, or they enjoy it because it gets them something. They get something from it. Like how I used to operate was very manipulative. So I would get something from it. So I wouldn't want to drop that, because if I didn't actually do that, how would I get what it was that I wanted? And to actually stop and not get what you want in life is a big whoa, then what's going to happen?
So you want to get what you want, but you won't want to get what you think you want, number one. And number two, you want to get what you want from who you want to get it from, and that person may say, I'm fed up with that. I don't want to do that anymore. And so then we're pushing certain people's buttons, and maybe our greater good would come from some other disconnection, like, okay, I came to Australia and I have no one to push their buttons. And
yes, but you see, everybody still wants what they want. If you came to Australia and nothing happened for you, it would feel uneasy. You wouldn't feel, you wouldn't feel like you'd succeeded. You might feel like you've failed, not feel like you're good enough. And people go through all those things when they don't actually receive what it is they want. And then sometimes if they want something and they get it, there's a place where they go, oh, well, I didn't actually want it like that.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't really what I wanted.
Picky,
I thought it was going to be a certain way. But when you actually drop all those places, and that's what I really want to share, is that, there's so many parts to people's lives and their personalities and who they think they are. And control is just one of them, and manipulation, and then there's jealousy and greed and all sorts of things. They're all the same stuff. But if you actually stop and be with those individual aspects of who you are and how you operate in the world, you can have a look and see which ones you actually really want to hold on to. And then you'll see, that's who I really want to be. I want to be a control freak. I want to get what I want. I'm too fearful. And there's an excuse for all of them. There's a justification for all of them, because if I'm not that way, then what's going to happen? The world will fall apart. My life will change too much. This might happen. And they're afraid of the consequences, so they find a justification for staying the way that they are, even though they might say they want their lives to be different.
I've kind of looked at a little bit at how I operate, and even in some of these conversations, and I kind of know, like, okay, you said if you get what you want, then that's fine, but if you got nothing, came out here and got nothing, and so then I can even acknowledge that, okay, well, I built this facade, that has these cameras and stuff, and I like to engage people, and I don't know if I could just engage them if I went to the bar or something like that. And I didn't, or if I just started walking, and I'm walking around, hi, how are you? And so then I built this thing that kind of allures, is alluring or kind of draws people in. Okay, so then I will say that I remember the first time I went to Europe, and I would say I was marveling, like 50% of the time I was taken in to people's confidence and brought into their home and fed and questioned and considered and interacted with. And 50% of the time I was totally alone, right? Just on my own, totally alone, not talking the language in a new country. But I didn't know any of the languages when I was going through Europe. And I don't know, I was okay with that in a way, you know. Maybe if it was all one way, it wouldn't have been right. But if the 50-50 was okay.
But see how you're not maybe okay, sort of. There's none of that when you actually stop and you wake up. There's none of the maybe and it's okay, sort of. It's all so perfect, even if nobody turned up. And you just stay excited in your life. Wow, nobody turned up. So I can go to the beach, I can do this, I can do that. And you're totally with what is. And that's the key to it, is that you're 100% with what turns up. No control, no manipulation. And the peace that's inside from absolutely having none of that agenda anywhere within yourself is the place that you can have all the time, every day, no matter what goes on. And that's why I wanted to, I didn't want to wake up. I just wanted to not be that roller coaster ride, that emotional turmoil, that up and down, that manipulating, hurting other people, therefore myself. I don't know, just general life things that happen. And I just decided I just didn't want it anymore. I wanted to try something different, so I sat with everything that everybody told me. When I was told that I was irresponsible, I was manipulative, I was controlling, all those different things. And I sat and I didn't do a thing. I may have cried and felt it deep down inside, but I didn't answer back. I didn't try and justify it. I didn't go and do the gardening to shift the energy out, and rather than sitting with it. And it was melting. It was dissolving. It was breaking down inside me. I could feel it. Sometimes it would be burning up. And then it sort of just got to a point, you know, in this, that it just disappeared. Everything just disappeared one morning. Because I was on this journey and I was just looking at everything of how I was automatically operating.
Let me just go back to what I might call a preparation, because when you said you were looking at things and you weren't, and some of the key things I picked up was you weren't explaining, you weren't excusing yourself or interpreting, you weren't shifting the energy by changing your activity. You know, like, okay, I find myself, I'm so easy to have an answer pops out of my mouth, and so that means like I'm a deflector. I deflect energy really strongly. You know, and I can see myself doing that, but then, I don't know, it doesn't seem, once in a while I guess I just shut up and just don't answer, and I have such a good answer ready, you know, and I know this is the right answer, God, I hate to have it and not use it, right? And, you know, I don't know, I mean, you know, and I've got so many good answers, right, because I can always say, maybe this, that, and the other, and not really declare stuff, but just kind of throw in, well, what about this, you know? It's kind of like, it shifts the energy, because I just say, hey, somebody tells me something, I say, what about this? Right?
Yes. Yeah, but if I was to say something to you and then make you stay where you were sitting and taped your mouth up and you had to sit with what I said, and I was to tell you some truths about how I saw you and how you operate in your life, your brain will keep going.
Tape my brain up, I was going to say.
Yeah, your brain will keep going. But there's a certain part where when the brain can't express itself, then it will drop further down, and then you start to feel it in your body. And then you start to feel it. It might shake, might get hot inside, might contract, might have spasms, just depending on what's actually going on for you. If you actually can't physically move and you have to sit with something.
So you can't change the energy, right?
You
just
can't
have to let it
shift
settle.
the energy. And then it's a cellular shift, you see. It's actually a whole body shift, because there's nothing else left except sitting really still, and something wants to move because you have this feeling, this realization, and it can't go anywhere except stay within you, and just something happens, something transforms, and unless you actually sit with it, it's probably very difficult to explain. That's why I sort of said it's like a transformation or a melting, a dissolving, and no comeback. Because the comeback is of the mind to, keep you out of stopping and feeling.
For sure. It also means like I already did that, or I already know it, so why do I don't have to consider. Here's one for you, like, because you're saying that somehow something melts and that shifts, right?
Yeah.
But I think of a situation where somebody really can't open his mouth, and there's a huge movement, and that would be like in a war zone, where somebody invaded their home or invaded their town, shot a bunch of people, and you were right there, like you were going to be next to be shot, so you were just totally shut up, right? And just all that was moving through you, but it seems like that makes post-traumatic stress or trauma. That doesn't really melt stuff. I mean, that just packs something in a way. Just packs a real fear factor in. I don't know why that came up to me, that image. But that's a time when you don't say anything, and you don't deflect, and you don't dare say a thing.
I don't have an answer for that. But most of us aren't in that situation. And I'm talking more about just everybody here in Australia that walks around every day with drama in their lives and frustration and not getting what they want. And until you have that peace inside, then to be able to stand in a war zone would probably be totally different. The transition from being this person and soldier going to war to be able to create absolute total peace, it does happen. Like there's stories all the time, plane crashes, total disaster all around them, people running everywhere, and somebody just gets so centered and so peaceful, and they just walk around and they just help this person and help that person, and they get out the other end and they don't know how they've done it, but something's descended over them where they just go into this other place which is within all of us. And that's how they've reached it. Mine was like a progressive one, and then it happened one morning and I was in that place. Some people can possibly do it in those situations. But everybody has the opportunity in a beautiful country with ease and nature and people to support them and that, to be able to do it, but they don't want to because they're afraid of they're afraid of losing who they think they are, not who they really are. Because if they saw who they really were, they would want it. They would want this place where it's just so peaceful, so at ease with everything that occurs. It's just like, oh, this is what's happening. Oh, and this, and just being with what happens every day. Instead of making a big story about it and a big drama and telling all your friends and making it bigger and putting the energy there. And then that goes out. That goes out to everybody else. That goes out to the whole planet, all that drama that fight, that argument, that wanting what you want, that control. And then we all sit here and go, oh, wonder why the world's like it is. I feel so controlled. Everybody's fighting, but they're actually fighting in their everyday life because they don't want to change, and yet they want the world to.
That's kind of very insightful. There's a couple times you've said drama, and the question was bobbing up in me saying, well, when you're in this centered state or in this peaceful state, maybe drama's not necessary. Is there any drama, or is drama just some kind of manufactured thing?
Drama's definitely manufactured. Yeah, I used to love drama. It's exciting. It's fun. It's lots of energy, and people are yelling back at you, and you're yelling at them, or whatever. People are storming off. There's chaos, and it can be exciting. And it's like, whoa, hang on a minute. What am I actually doing here? What am I creating? This is madness. Aren't we all supposed to be living in love and peace and harmony and all those sorts of things? But we really don't underneath. I didn't. Part of me enjoyed that. Oh, maybe it was an exciting part to my day instead of the everyday normal thing that I did. But then there's a point where you go, do I really want to create this in my life? Again.
Right, and again.
Do I want to show my children this is how to act? Do I want to show my friends this is how I act? My relationship. Is that really how I want to live for the rest of my life? And then I went, no, there's got to be a different way. And this isn't for me anymore.
You know, I want to ask how something happened, because you explained very clearly. You explained that, you were something that within you, well, there were some tough times, and you said, well, the old solutions don't seem right, if I'm paraphrasing. And then somehow you went and sat with people that told you a few things, and you just stayed with what was going on. And I started to explain, like, with me, I'm a deflector, for instance. Always an excuse comes popping out. And I explained how it was hard to hold them in because they seemed like such appropriated good ones that I didn't want to waste them. Or whatever the excuse was. And when we mentioned tape your mouth shut, and I said, tape my mind shut, please. But somehow you sat with it. But I don't know. Why? How did you do it? I mean, because to me, it's such an automatic reaction to wiggle out. And you must have had a lot of patterns that, you wiggle around and control your life. And I would say you had them. You weren't just a natural at it. Somehow, I don't know whether you were fed up with those things.
Yes, you have to want to change. You actually have to want with every cell in your body. You want to be different. It's as simple as that.
Did you have to believe what people were telling you, or I don't think you have to, because you can't believe everything.
No, they could have been wrong.
Huh?
They could have been wrong. They could have been telling me I was irresponsible, or I was a control freak. I'd be going, no, that's not me. I don't think that's right. My brain would go round and round and go and convince me. But if you want to change, other people see you. And it's like, okay, I'll sit with that. I'll see. I won't deflect. I won't go into the automatic no, and I'll just sit there and go, control. Am I controlling? And feel it in your body. And then I just started to cry. Yes, there's parts of me. Levels of control, more, bigger, less than anybody else. I don't know. It didn't matter. There was some place that felt like, yes, I control. It's like exploring. Is there a place in here that they're saying? And if there's not, well, I'm going to be fine, aren't I? It's like,
right
no,
on.
that's not there. All right, after 5 or 10 minutes of sitting with it. But really, I had to want to have a look. I wanted to find out everything about who I was and how other people saw me. Yeah, I wanted to do that because I didn't want to be that anymore.
comes to me that you could even pray, you know, you'd be sitting there and something would want to wiggle out and just say, please let me see what's being said and being shared, and please let me see myself. You know, I really earnestly want to have more knowledge about myself and not be so out of touch or automatic or...
Definitely, yes. Yeah. And just wanting it a bit like you want an ice cream isn't good enough.
Just being curious.
You know, people will put more energy into becoming somebody, passing year 12, becoming a doctor, becoming somebody big and important. They'll put all their energy and all their focus into that. So stop and put all your focus in here. That's how much I wanted to be different than who I was being.
Put all your focus into what you already are instead of put all your focus into becoming. So, you know, in a way, if we feel like what we are, I've already got it, you know, it's in the bag, so then I better go get something, you know, I'm not risking that. We don't even think of, like, experiencing it.
We don't want to. We don't want to stop and have a look on what's been created for all those years from when you're born through. You actually don't want to stop and have a look. You just want to keep on going on the treadmill. And society creates that. They keep you going. Education, how many days a week, you know, holidays, then you're busy with the family, and then you're doing all these other things. It's a constant thing to keep you busy, to keep you out of having a look inside. And if you actually stop and then go and have a look inside, you're called selfish. Spending too much time on yourself. But it's all right to spend, 38 hours a week on earning income so you can live and have food. And so does anybody spend, 5 hours a week just on themselves, on having a look at who they are? I don't think so. I never did. Some people meditate, but do they actually listen to what other people tell them that they think about themselves? Or is their meditation an escape from their hectic life of being somebody?
It's like a release valve. Right?
Yeah, and that's why people drink or smoke or do drugs and stuff, is the release valve, definitely, but they don't actually get to have a look at who they are.
Maybe you have to be lucky to have someone tell you something that you can kind of trust, you know, because everybody's always telling you something, right? And then the information, especially about me, you know, comes from all directions, and I'm just thinking, forget it, you know, that's too much. What do they know?
That's a good reflection, that one.
Deflection.
Deflection, that one, yes. Everybody can see different aspects of yourself, of you. Because everybody has different vision, different things that go on for them. They might not be true, but until you actually sit and stop and go, they said this about me, let's have a look. Might be true. That would be interesting upon that. So instead of making it a big thing, just go, okay, I'll sit with that one when I get home tonight.
So if you were truly humble, you would, you know, you wouldn't necessarily follow, but like you say, you would take a look.
Yeah, or say,
whatever came into you, right?
Yes, or when that person said something, go, really, is that how you see me? Oh, I never thought about that before. Thank you, I'll have a look.
What do I do to reinforce that? In other words, where is it that I look kinky to you?
Yeah, all those things. Just have a look. There's no harm in it. If you're fearful of it, you keep deflecting it. You keep justifying why you're that way. You keep going outside of yourself because there's a fear of actually seeing who you really are and how you're operating in the world. And most of the time it's not very nice. And that's why we don't want to look. It's not much fun in there to see those yucky bits of ourselves.
You know, they're all justified. And so that's kind of like how, you know, like for instance, maybe I'm a very declarative person and very forceful, right? And then that's why I've adopted this opposite, where I always say maybe and stuff like that, right? I'm always putting in these wishy-washy words because I have this guilt of being like a declaration machine, saying it's this way, it's that way. And that, that's not very inviting, that's not, people don't want to get declared to. And so then let's say I recognize that, but still, fundamentally, I don't know if I've really changed, I've added this other layer of like trying to soften everything I say by saying, I don't know, maybe, and pretending like I don't know, but probably inside I feel like, oh yeah.
So underneath that, if you stopped and had a look at that, underneath that is, oh, I just want to please, or I just want to be liked, or I don't want any dramas to come of this, so I'll just do an escape route, which is maybe, or I'll have it's playing around. It's not being honest with yourself, most of all. And when you're not honest with yourself, how can you be honest out there in the world to people? It's all driven and motivated by some other place inside you that doesn't feel so... Well, it's called the opposite of ego. So ego thinks it's great. It's wonderful. And it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks. And then there's no ego in the center. Then underneath that is like a depressed ego.
Counter ego, right?
Whatever, I don't know what they're called, but it's like, then you go into, oh, well, I'll do it so I'm liked, or I won't say that in case they don't invite me, or. When you're in this middle place of no ego, no drama, no stuff, until you're there, you don't know what it's like, but it's really, really, really great.
Yeah.
It's really great because you don't have all that crap going on. It takes up so much space inside yourself trying to do that counteraction and that ego and that not, that, what do you call that?
I call it the counter ego.
The counter
like
ego thing.
Supposed to nullify the ego, right? Somehow to balance it out, to take it to a perfect neutrality, or ha ha ha.
Yes, and then trying to make this person happy or that person happy, or to fix this or make it all smooth. And I did that, juggling. It's called juggling. And there's manipulation and control and trying to get what you want and feeling good and trying to make somebody else feel good and to be liked. That is just so messy. Like, that just takes up so much space inside yourself, and especially your brain. Your brain is trying to work it all out and juggle all these things, so in here it feels comfortable, but it's never comfortable in those states. And then people wonder why they get chronic fatigue, cancer, heart disease, everything. The body is taking in all that form of energy. It's messy. How can your cells be happy and jovial and yahoo, everything's cool, we're just going to be with this, we're not going to be with that? Easy. The others, the cells are going, oh, should we do this? Should we do that? How should we be this time? Should we shrink? Should we get bigger? Like, wow. That's how I see the whole body operating. Because apparently we have a vibration. It's a vibration that runs across your cells. And so I imagine that when you go through these things, your vibrations go up and down and in and out and all over the place. And so that affects every cell in your body, and therefore every organ system or the bloodstream. Under stress, your capillaries and everything tighten up. So what happens in drama? What happens in trying to please people? What actually happens to your cells then? Trying to get what you want. Manipulation. It affects everything, and then it radiates out to everybody around you as well. And then if we're all one, on one level we are, and people talk about it, but the one for me is this energy that's underneath all that persona and all that way of being, we're one, but we're also unique within that as well. So the vibration between you and I is the same, and it's expansive, and it's huge, and it's all encompassing, and there's nothing else. There's nothing to separate any of us, except when we decide to bring in one of those personality traits, and then the separation happens, and it keeps us apart. But way underneath there's something that I've felt in just walking around, and is that general love, that love in a different way to how we perceive them as humans, but a love that just extends from that deeper place within us that has no personality, that just goes everywhere and touches everyone. And then I can just feel how beautiful everybody is, and then they talk, and then it's like, oh, okay.
It sounds like, like...
That's my fairyland.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like, I'm try to look at the mechanism of like, okay, feel that. Feel the other person, and then somehow it must come up a feeling of risk, that being too close to that one. And then some kind of like a breakaway comes, like peeling off, and that breakaway is usually a thought pattern or some kind of like excuse or a deflection, or somehow break the energy, right? In order to break the feeling of energy. Let's say you feeling this energy and this closeness, and then you can break that away by making a judgment or something like that, and then instead of your attention being on the energy, which is communal, your attention just jumps over to somewhere else, like a thought about, oh well, this person, no, I don't want to be here, and then.
No, it's not necessarily that the judgment comes in. It's just like, oh, the personalities come back, and I can see that they're saying that because they don't feel so good about themselves underneath. So I can be with that person that doesn't feel so good about themselves and just be there with them with more love that enables them to then be more of who they are and drop less of that strong personality that wants to come through to impress me. They see that I'm not there to be impressed, that I already have this empathy, this feeling for them, and it doesn't matter what they put on the top, that they're accepted. And then somewhere it allows them to be more of who they really are, and they drop away more of that personality. And there's no judgment there, it's just an acceptance of that they're trying to cover up that hurt person.
You can notice the covering up, right? And then in a way that, and you can say, well, I don't know, is that a judgment? Maybe I'll just forget that, and I'll just stay here. Right?
Yeah, it's just an observation.
Right.
It's more of an observation, yeah. And more love and compassion that they feel that they do that they feel the need to do that with me. That they don't see that, just whoever they are being is perfect, and they also choose to be this other way in their lives. Because we are all perfect. If you don't want to change and you just want to stay who you are, and you want to stay with all these different personality aspects, and you want to use them in your life, and that works for you, great. Then one day, maybe, you'll decide that it doesn't work for you anymore, which is what happened to me.
So these mechanisms, somehow we've built them over a long time, so then we say, hey, we might as well get some use out of them. They're not fully depreciated yet.
Yeah, that's right. And then some people have an accident.
They're still assets, right?
Yeah. And they end up in hospital, or they have a car accident or something, and they go, okay, maybe I need to check out the way I'm living my life. And then they might have a change of heart, as people say. Yeah. Because it sort of just incrementally gets more and more that it's like you look at one thing and think, oh yeah, that's me. And then somebody sees something else, and then there's something else. And it's like we are really complex. Like I thought I was sort of over a lot of them. And then somebody else would throw something else in and be like, oh gosh, I'm that as well. And it's just like, you have this whole list of things. not just a couple that you might think that you have.
You
By the
might think
time
of
everybody else gives them to you, you have a huge list.
You would stack, right? A couple things come up in my for a question, because like, okay, let's say I describe a few things that I don't notice about myself. One was that I'm overbearing, right? I can be. And then I can even say I'm compensating for that. So then I can see two layers on the same thing, but it really hasn't dissolved. Instead of dissolving it, it's a compensation, I think, right? Or it could be. And so then the one thing I want to ask is like, okay, we can see things and still they don't disappear, they just get compensated, or then other things we could see and we could say, well, it's useful. And so then that's an excuse that keeps it, right? And then, even when you see things, they don't wear out right away. For some reason, they have I'm not saying they have a momentum, because they don't have anything, That's just a mechanism. But somehow I feel that there's a momentum with it, or somehow I treat it as it's just a behavior. I identify with it, I suppose, and just say that that's how I am, or
yes.
I make some kind of an excuse up, right?
And you totally accept that that's who you are, and that's what you do, don't you?
That's what I've been doing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I can't even say. I can even leave it open-ended and say, and I'm willing to change. And maybe I can even say I want to change.
See, you can say that, but it depends on where you say it from.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't do any good.
I want to change. Maybe, like I would like an ice cream.
Right.
I really want to change. I don't want to be that person anymore. And it vibrates in your body, and you really have I absolutely don't want to operate that way anymore in my life. And if you keep going into that and feeling how that has impacted on other people and how it impacts on your body and how much energy that carries to be that way, something changes inside yourself. When it's really deeply heart and bodily felt that's enough. If you say, I want to change up here, no, you might as well forget it.
Oh, yeah. No, I actually had some pretty big insights into that, because, okay, let's say the background would be like, you hear so many times people say you have to want this with all your, as your first priority, like with all your might. And then that kind of sounds like, how did I used to want things with all my might? I used to do it full of anxiety, right? And so I don't want to be doing that. So that's not what they must mean. And then you try to figure out, well, how could a desire lead to desirelessness? And there's all kinds of excuses that don't compute. And then, and so on, right? But I was with someone the other day, we were speaking, and we were actually going into a little bit of a kinesiology, which is muscle testing. And she showed me a few techniques, right? And so then it's really, there's all kinds of layers we have on ourselves that we might say one thing, I want to stop smoking. And then you can ask the body, do you want to stop smoking? No, it doesn't want to stop smoking, And then you can ask the body, you can ask again, are you upset by the fact that you really don't want to stop smoking? And it might even say no again. And do you want to do anything about not wanting to smoke? The fact that your body thinks it still wants to smoke, even though your mind, no, I don't want to do anything. And there might be 5 or 6 layers like that, right? Where you can't just trust the words, right? And then the feeling that you're pumping this feeling, right? It's a made-up thing, right? It's not authentic in some way. And to reach that, the ground where something in you tests strong in your body and says, this is what I want to do. And then it's rather obscure. It's like the human has got so many cover-ups and counter-cover-ups that whatever that means to really want this with all your heart and soul, you have to discover, I guess, and unpeel it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what actually initiated that in myself to get to that point.
Maybe it was just luck. Maybe you were just lucky and didn't have too many layers on it.
Or maybe there was just so many dramas happening and so many ups and downs that I was going through that instead of having to have a car accident or a heart attack to get me to the point where it was like, okay, need to reassess my life. I just decided to reassess it there and then, that was enough. My marriage had broken up, kids, the whole family fallen apart. It was like, wow, something needs to shift in me. The way I've been operating, the way I've been seeing the world. And it started off slowly. And then I think it impacted. Everybody started to say quite a few things about how I was all at once, like in a week. I was this way and I was this way, and I just kept sitting with it because I wanted to see what they could see. And then one morning, I was half awake, like, at 6 o'clock in the morning or something, and I just heard this voice, "Are you ready to let go, Diane?" And I didn't know what that meant or anything like that, and I went back to sleep. And then when I got up out of bed, an hour or so later, and as soon as I put my foot on the floor, it was just like this whole other world opened up, and I was just like, wow, oh, this is where Diane lives. And it was like being nothing I've ever experienced before. It was so wide and immense, and probably a bit like a child in an adult's body of wonderment. It's like, oh, wow, look at that. That's what that feels like. And I just walked around all day in this dream wonderment type state, crying over touching a plant. Just going, oh, this is a body. Oh, and it just sort of, the Diane and all the personality and all the things that labelled things as a certain way, seeing it a certain way, had all disappeared. So all that looking at all those personality traits, somehow it just dissolved them all, is what I'm trying to share. And they just totally disappeared. So that when you asked to have a look at what they were, I know the words to them, manipulation and control, but how Diane did them, how Diane operated them and stuff is just not in my realm of, it's just not here anymore of how that worked. Why you would do that seems crazy, because this way is just so easy and so blissful, and wouldn't trade it for the world. It's one of those things, yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, boy. Like,
freedom.
I mean, think about, like, not objectifying or not, not trying to get the picture, have some kind of an overlay of a picture that we're trying to overlay on ourselves. But, inside, we're just like all praying for what you just said. We're saying, God, let it be me, And we were probably into beliefs, even though I reject all these ideas and thoughts and say, no, you can't just be being somebody else, and we're saying, well, at least let me be preparing, like she said, let me watch myself or look at myself, whatever it could be, I'll prepare, and we'll call that a miracle or a grace or something like that, and we'll pray for that then, let me just be preparing so that I can somehow be swept away, because I just can't do it myself. I know I can't do it. So then, in a way, it's kind of like, it's a weird story where we're just hoping and praying and thinking this story. I was going to ask you before if there's any tendency to slip back, but it sounds like that's totally impossible. That they wouldn't have any interest whatsoever, right? And there's just no connection to that anymore.
It's hard work.
To go back, or to pretend like you could go back, or...
Well, to be that being that everybody does, with all those personalities, it's such hard work. To satisfy everybody, to make everybody else happy by being a certain way, by trying to manipulate or control your situation. That requires so much energy. And yet everybody wants this bliss, peace and freedom within, but they want the other more.
Yeah. It's so funny because we got wired totally the other way in the way we try to approach things. I mean, we're not doing it right at all because it seems like it's so much energy to search and to do spiritual practices and to be, consistent and all that stuff, and to make the time, and then to remembering, and it seems like, and it's so easy just to plow along on automatic pilot, and then to remember to, hey, check in, let's be here. And those seem to be so arduous, and you're saying, well, it's totally the opposite, actually. It's so arduous to be like you are, and so automatic, and then we're doing it totally wrong, right? I mean, we're doing it as as an overlay on an overlay on an overlay, right?
Yeah.
As a job on top of a job on top of a job.
So stop. Stop it. There's a video thing about somebody that just says, just stop doing what you're doing. Yeah. And what it is, and what that's sitting there with your mouth taped up and not moving and sitting with it, is just total surrender. Can you see that if I just had to sit here with my mouth taped up, I would just have to surrender to what you told me I was? I couldn't come back at you. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't justify anything. I would have to sit and feel it. And the surrender inside and the dissolving inside. Nothing else to do except that. To be with who you really are. Whatever that is. Forget about all the flowery things that you're wonderful and you're beautiful and great. You are that, but you don't know that while you sit here covering it all up. You can't put flowers on top of control. You've got to take the flowers off and get into the control and be and feel that and surrender that that's who you really are, and then it just dissolves. It's quite easy, really. And I know I can sit in this place and say that, and even back then I can feel what you're saying with the struggle and trying to do this and trying to do that. Yes, it was that too. But the more I stopped and just surrendered and shut up, the easier it was. And I went to sharing groups and people would tell me I was a certain way. I'd go home, sit with it. Wow, they see me being that way. Okay, and really feeling it, really acknowledging that that's a possibility. And if it's not there, well, that's going to be fine too. But if it is there, I want to know. But you have to want it. You have to want your life to be really different, an extraordinary life. An amazing life beyond all this human conditioning, human
management, like in other words, we have to get out of the management techniques and then just say, okay, it's all a wash.
Yeah. Yeah, drop it all. It's not worth it. Really isn't. It costs you your health, your relationships, and your peace of mind.
It costs you yourself.
Well, yeah. Yeah, your whole self is involved in this, and you keep building and creating that self. But underneath is just such a beautiful being, so free and open and amazing, and that's who you really are. This shining light that we cover up with all these other things. And when you're not being that shining light underneath by covering it all up, we all miss out. Everybody misses out on feeling that total acceptance and love from another. And that keeps us separate again. Maybe we're all too scared to be really close on that level. And That's sad. Maybe that's why we fight.
I totally appreciate you coming out and trying this out, trying to tell us these things, and what may be the first time you've tried, or one of the early times you actually tried to express these things. And I feel totally honored that we're the forum that can get such a fresh sharing and benefit by it, and just relax into it, and feel your honesty and your sincerity, and just be inspired by what you've said.
Yeah, thanks so much, Richard. I really appreciate being able to come and play and share, because it is my first time, and learning to communicate what it is that I feel is my practice now.
Dianne Horton, and are we in Byronshire?
Yes.
So Byron Bay in Byronshire. Amazing place, and Diane's an amazing woman, and we're amazingly lucky to know you.
Thank you.
Thanks.